Hello, I'm Clint, and welcome to Swatches Livestream number 86. This is an art challenge episode where we'll be reviewing the concepts slash sketches for the Planeswalker, which is an MTG based, and a Warcraft themed art challenge. This is from Group 1, this is just their concepts, and then they will have 2 more weeks to do the finals and submit that in. I am Clint Curley. I am joined by our guest, Anna, who is a moderator here in the Swatches community. How's it going, Anna? Good. Oh, did I unmute Anna? That's only about the 10th time I've done that. There you go. I think they can hear you now.
We must train that. Hi everyone, how are you?
Okay, well, as usual, we're going to spend the first couple of minutes just running through some announcements, letting you know what some of the activities are going on with the community, answer some common questions, and this will also allow people a couple of minutes to make sure that they get into the live stream before we really get into the review section. First, I want to just take a look, make sure all of our streaming settings are looking okay. I'm not getting any flags from my program. So I assume that we're good on all of that. You guys can hear us okay. That's good. Move this out of the way. All right, so as I mentioned, Anna is with us. She is also a moderator out on the Facebook group as well as the Discord server. So if you want to catch her or I to get some feedback or answer some questions, we're readily available. Okay, update on the Discord server. I'm fairly new to Discord. I didn't realize that the link that you can give out can actually expire. So the last public link I gave out was not accurate. Or that it was, but then it timed out. Anyway, I told it to set this one to not time out, and you can follow that address there to get onto the Swatches Discord. Out there, you can connect with the community. There are different rooms for the art challenge. If you want to look for feedback, if you're just sharing work and you don't necessarily want feedback, for sharing resources and recommended tutorials to watch, that sort of thing. And also a really good place to get peer feedback. We have a number of professionals and semi-professionals here in the group, and most of them are very happy to give you some constructive feedback, maybe even a paint over, in order to help you improve as an artist. Now, something that is new with the community that I am really looking forward to see take off is the art club. And this one is really headed up by Anna. Can you give them just a quick an overview of what the idea of the art club is, and then we'll take a look at some of the images that will sort of explain that.
Yeah, so Art Club is something fairly new. We started a little bit more than a week ago. And I think, or I thought about having an art club with swatches to help people get some guidance through the process of studying and training and working for their art and improving their art. And because sometimes can be very overwhelming if you start out with art, or even if you're already a couple of months, years, whatever, to it, to know what should I study next and how can I prove this and that. And that is why I thought, okay, let's have an art club where one says we are going to study this, that next, and then people do the assignments and take part in that. And it's not that like I'm the super teacher who knows everything and is perfect, but I try to make some summaries, what I learned so far, how I understood it so far, and give out some assignments. And the people will post them. There was a lot of submissions on Discord already, and here and there something on Facebook. So I must say my Discord group is much more active. So if you want to join the more active group,
Yes.
go over to Discord and post there. Yeah, and as you can see already on screen, we have, as an example, one of the pro and masterpieces picked from somewhere. You can use your very own favorite ones and did some analysis about these. So we did at step 1, we do a training for the eye to learn how to see values, because your eyes must learn that. Clint has in some video explained the with the checkboard, Clint. Do you know which
Oh
what
yeah.
artist was this from?
Oh, the checkered board. Oh, with the light
Yes,
and dark values.
yeah, with the light and dark values, where you get a little bit deceived.
Yeah, I think James Gurney used that
Yeah,
example. So if you guys want to jump into this, they're currently working on studying values and improving your observational skill with values. I do recommend go out and watch the values art fundamentals video that I have on the YouTube channel. It'll give you a quick overview of what values are in order to kind of solidify that in your mind as how it's separate from necessarily like lighting. I then come out here and do these studies, and it's like Anna said, she's not necessarily the one teaching you. This is a self study. You will get out of it what you put into it. And I'm telling you guys, these are excellent studies. I consistently have people ask me, what should I be practicing? Even in the consult, a lot of you are asking me, what should I be practicing in my art? This, this sort of stuff right here. This is what you should be doing on a weekly basis. It is looking at a master image and breaking down why it works. We have to understand why something works in order to be able to replicate that same kind of success. And so here, I guess what you're doing, Anna, is you're looking at a piece and you're practicing identifying which of the 1 to 10 values is which area, as well as looking at the value range of background, midground, and foreground. Is that right?
yes. So there are a couple of steps to look at these pieces. So I took this one from another video game. I don't know the name of the artist, how to pronounce it, but I put it in the description
Mm-hmm.
of in the PDF file. And I will first define where is midground, foreground, background, just as a hint. Not every piece has all three of them because we
True.
already had some submissions where they just were two planes and not all the others.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be sad if it doesn't work completely like that, but most times it should work for you. And we were looking how the value ranges change. Usually you would have with a piece like this that you see now on screen, have the most value range the foreground, and then in the midground is a little bit less, and in the background, because of atmospheric, it gets less and less. But there might pieces where it's completely different because
Mm-hmm.
there is something crazy happening that's indoors or whatever. So this is why we need to analyze this for each piece step by step. And then we do this with the eye training, putting the numbers, trying to find what do you think, which are the same values. This is the checkboard experience. So you
Yes.
think, this one is the same brightness as this one. And when you click them and look whether they really are the same value, you realize they're not. So this is a
Mm-hmm.
good training for your eyes so that you don't get deceived. The next step would be to, if you want to, I think it's just a really helpful thing that Clint did that in the fundamentals value video, where he condensed some of the values to just 3 or 4 values
Mm-hmm.
and see whether the pieces still hold up with this little range of value. And then you can see that the artist really put a lot of thought behind their values. So it's kind of a proof for us. So,
Yeah.
and see how they work and why is this so readable, this painting. So you see it in that step. Yeah, and the last step is to do a painted version of this. You can, and this is also going out to everyone who was wondering how they should do it. You can do a 3-value um, painted value study. You can pick just 5 values and just try to do it with these 5 values. Or you can do one where you try to get pretty much close to the painting without completely copying it,
Mm-hmm.
but to get at least to that point where you really have to analyze and think about what is happening here. And this is the goal for this training, that you start thinking about, why is that value here? Why did this artist choose it? Why is this black and this white? So why are they so close to each other? Is it for readability? Is it because there's a form change? Is it because of a lighting? Where does it come from? And if you reach that point while painting, then you are at the right level of detail. Then it's enough. You don't have to copy every hair
Yeah.
of each
Yeah.
character. It's really just about getting the bones, to getting the base. What is happening here? How did they choose? Where is light against dark, dark against light? Does it alternate? Is it for the whole character all dark against light, or is there maybe the top of the character light against dark and the bottom dark against light? All these things and what they make with you, what they communicate. That is the goal of the very first week of the art club. And because this is something so important, I decided to have it ongoing for one more week. Usually we just have 1 week for each topic, but I also want to give others still the possibility to join if they're interested. So you
Yes.
have 1 more week to do that. And for everyone who already submitted, do another one. Go there. You don't have to do all the steps again, but at least do the painted ones. Do a 3 value and a full range at least for each piece that you find interesting and think the values are really interesting. I want to get in more detail with this piece. This is my recommendation for you guys for the rest of the week.
All right, guys,
Yeah.
if you are serious and you want to improve, this is exactly the sort of things that you should do. Same sort of things that I did back when I was doing more study based things. So hop on over, and it can be a lot more fun in order to do it with others and share your feedback and get inspired by what everybody else is doing. So just hop on the Discord. You have another week to get in where this is at before we toss up a new subject or whatever Anna comes up with. So that is going on. Let's see other announcements. Next Friday. Next Friday, we will be doing the group 2 of this same challenge. So we have 2 groups going on in the same challenge, doing the same subjects. They're just offset by a week in order to split up the number of people we are reviewing per stream. Then next week will be next week will be their first week, but then in 2 weeks there would be a new challenge. I am continuing work on the Patreon release that I am planning to have Patreon run on this July 1st. Then you will receive the project a couple of days after that. Usually it takes a couple of days for the payment to process and all of that. But this is on the illustration process. What I'm focusing on here is basically outlining how to do this sort of challenge. We keep going over a lot of the same questions, trying to explain the same things, and addressing the same problems during all of these art challenges. And my attempt with this is to give you a walkthrough of the illustration process with examples and hit on a lot of the common misconceptions or pitfalls and be able to walk you through that process so that if you want to do a challenge like this, that you'll be able to do it more successfully because you'll have a better guide for it. So if you're interested in that, then make sure that you're a patron at the $10 level or higher on the patreon.com/swatches. In case you're wondering, yes, the materials course is also progressing, but due to the fact that it is a entire course with dozens of lessons and episodes in it, it will take more time to complete. So I decided to go ahead and make something that was just a standalone video slash PDF that could help fill the time. I opened up some more dates on the mentorship. So if you want an hour one-on-one video chat with me, where we can go over your art portfolio, career, education, that sort of thing, or maybe you're just in a slump and you're looking for some feedback about how to overcome artist block or lack of motivation, we can chat about that as well. You can get more information and schedule a consult at art-mentor.com. And if you like this channel, if you'd like to see more content that we have, then make sure that you are subscribing so you can find your way back to the channel, and leave a like on the video and a comment if you would. Any more announcements that you can think of that we need to go over before we start looking at some images?
No, not as an announcement, but just for everyone who's interested in general in how to paint a piece and what steps to get through. It's not just for the people who are going for the challenge on Swatches. It's like a general thing. Should consider joining the Patreon before the
Mhm.
1st of July. It is a general thing. It's not just for this challenge explicit.
Right,
So
right.
it's a general thing how to approach a painting. So this challenge is mimicking that. So
Hmm.
I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, I covered I covered the same sort of topic a while back with the painting process video that I put out, and I think it has it. I know it has good information in it, but I don't think that I taught it or put it in as good of a package or as usable a package. And this one aims to make it a lot more usable, applicable, and hit more common mistakes and solutions on that sort of way. Hopefully, I'll give you a little preview of it maybe next week, and then we'll see from there. Okay, so moving on, we have got a lot of images to look at. Quick note is the people who are joining this had to follow a particular outline. So this is a sort of outline. We're not going to run and read the whole thing. If you want to watch it, and if you're watching it later, you can just pause it and read the whole thing if you want. But they had to choose between two subjects, either a Planeswalker, which would fit into the MTG Magic the Gathering universe, where we are creating a new Planeswalker character named Asherin Thousand Dawn, who is a holy monk. Or you had to choose a splash art Warcraft theme image featuring a female elf who is hunting in the woods. So they can choose either one of those following the description and specs given. All right. So now let's jump over into it. Oh, and those files are also free to go download. And if you want to give your own shot at this, if that just sounds like fun practice, then you could go download those from the Dropbox archive of Art Challenge Archive. Those files are available. All right, we're just going to go alphabetically. So we're going to start with David. Pull that up. Before stream, we have both of us had a chance to sit down and just jot down some ideas on the images. And we attempt to try to give some constructive feedback and answer questions that they might have wrote in. David says doesn't really have any questions, just trying to challenge himself and improve his process habits. And so, welcome, David. If you are in the chat, also, if you're in the challenge and you're joining the chat live, feel free to toss me questions or do a shout out. And so, Anna, let's start with you and your feedback with this. What was some of your thoughts here, or maybe what are some ideas that David could consider to improve the image as he moves forward?
Yeah. So what I liked about this piece is that he didn't went for much too fancy angles or much too fancy poses, which is good for a Planeswalker card. So that it really you max out the readability of the design, the max out the readability of the character. What hit me first was, but this is something that you have to say, Clint, isn't it that usually a Planeswalker card has to be a full body?
Yeah, actually, let me pause you there.
Yeah.
This is a bit of a mistake on my part. All right. Uh, I did not specify in the brief that it had to be full figure. And that I really should have stated that. That would be on me. And I think what David, one, I didn't say that, and two, usually when you see a Planeswalker image on a card, you just see the upper body, and you're sort of like, oh, okay. What you don't realize is that the lower body actually continues in the image. It's just covered up by the text. So the full image is full body. It's just the most visible part of the frame is the upper body. So going forward, it was my bad for not specifying that. But yeah, we do need to go to full body. He does have like a full body up here on this third concept. So we basically can use, this direction for that part of the image, but we do also need to expound out. And on that line, if an art director or company makes a mistake with the brief, and forgets to tell you something important or specify something, and it causes significant rework, they would probably offer you a revision fee as a bonus to cover the fact that they are making you do extra work. I'm not going to be doing that, but anyway, so I just want to clarify that. Assuming that David can just zoom out a bit and do the rest of the body, what's your further thoughts?
Yeah. So I think it has at first everything in it we asked for. It has the ethereal arm, it has the tattoos on the other side, and he's readable as a monk. So it's a good base to start from. What I would be pushing are two things. The first is the design. I think it's a little bit too plain by now. There is not much detail telling us more about the character. I'm probably going to say this for a couple of submissions today, because I personally take this challenge, because I also joined the second group for the others, just to know. I'll take this one more as a design and then illustration challenge. So thinking about the character and making something new and unique for the world of MTG. So do something that makes this character stand out from the others who we see. Every time we see this guy, we know, yeah, that's Sharon, that's him. Yeah, so get something more interesting, get some more patterns. It's like a big banana shape all over his body. So the belt continues directly in the stuff that is coming from, I don't know how to call it, stola or something, over his chest. So it's a continuation of that. Which is not bad if you make it more diverse and interesting. So a little bit more working with shapes here would be my hint. And the second thing would be on the lighting. So as I can see from your value studies, you would also profit from being in the art club, because we will be working on that problem, that you really try out different lighting situation, that you be a little bit more bold with your shadows, and give this these shadows nice shapes and stuff like that. And I think he could push that much further. I'm okay with the color scheme. It's a good with the cool background and the warm foreground character. I'm totally fine by that. Maybe you could even add a little bit of the sunlight in the background, but this might be personal preference.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you hit on a good point, which is this isn't just an illustration challenge, which it is, but it's really hand in hand with the design, and that this is a character design within an illustration challenge. And if this is going to be a Planeswalker, you need to be going through a lot of iterations with the design and figuring out what this guy looks like. I mean, he's going to be a flagship character in an international brand. He better be cool, and he better be unique, and he better be somebody that when you look at him, you think, yeah, I want to play that dude. And so what you do is, you draw a number of bodies, or what you can do is, actually, let's change that. Draw like a pose or a figure, and then multiply it at least like half a dozen times. And so we got a bunch of copies of this. Then you go and you do variations over that body. And some of them have the stripe going over, the garb going over the shoulder. And say, okay, well, I like that. I'm going to do that 3 times, but they're going to go different ways. And then I'm going to have some that wrap around the other side, so it makes an X pattern. Then I might have some that comes up higher on his waist. Then I might have some that loops around this way as well. Then I'm going to have, and you just go through a bunch of variations. And so you do half a dozen variations. Then you pick the best one. Then you do half a dozen variations of that one. Then you pick the best one. And then you do half a dozen color variations of that one. And then you pick the best one. Then you put that one into your illustration. See, ideas, and I was writing about this in the newest Patreon video. Ideas are like seeds, all right? If you want to get a crop, you don't plant the minimum number of seeds because not all seeds grow. And you have to work with them. You have to germinate them. You have to water them. You have to, get them sun. You have to keep working with them so they get you some good results. And the ideas are the same way. You don't want to go with your first idea. So if you just did one version of the guy, it's unlikely that that's going to be the best. But if it's the best out of 6, then it's the best out of 6, then it's the best out of 6. You're far more likely to have a lot more interesting idea by the time you get to the end than just whatever came to you in the first thought. And this goes for a lot of the people in this challenge, in that the characters just have a very generic look. And the word that you used, Anna, which is unique, that's what you're aiming for. And we have to think about things like the history, personality of the character, and you're sort of working out like, how did his arm get this way? Did it get damaged? Did it get torn off? Did something bite it off? Oh, well, maybe he was in a battle and his arm got torn off by something, in which case there might be these massive scars of whatever it was, leaving these massive teeth mark across his body. Oh, but Clint, that wasn't specified. It wasn't not specified. It doesn't go against it in order to develop the idea. You're trying to think of a history of who this guy is. So maybe it's that, and maybe you can actually see where the arm was pulled off there. And then maybe the arm actually doesn't connect all the way with the golden. Maybe it just becomes, more visible as it goes down. And then maybe we see other wounds on his face and stuff from the same battle that took his arm. And then with the clothes, maybe he's a little self-conscious about it. So he has that shoulder wrapped in the fabric, so you can't see all of it. But yet, we need to see signs of his belief or his faith or where he gets his energy. So we need to make it a little more complex. It's like, okay, we have something tying around his waist. All right. But can we make it a little more interesting? It's like if you look over here at these guys, they don't just have a belt. You have a belt with a wider belt behind it. And then behind that, you have the fur coming out of it. And on that back belt, there's stitching. So there's multiple pieces. Then there's a red piece of fabric that comes out underneath that. Then there's the thin pieces that come out underneath that. And on that top belt, there's little rivet bits there. And so you're building these layers, and that helps keep it more interesting. It makes it feel more realistic. And so that's what I'm thinking here is maybe there's another piece that comes out there. And then on this piece, there's some subtle patterning. And maybe it comes out down here as well. And then on this fabric, maybe it's actually 2 different colors of fabric that are similar. And then maybe he has things tied to the fabric. Prayer beads is a common thing that you see on a lot of fantasy monks. Maybe he has a little band of prayer beads around it. And we're just fleshing out this character and working on it that way. And then as far as lighting, maybe, I assume he probably just didn't get that much to the lighting part of it. But yeah, what you were saying, Anna, going out, looking at what some other people do as far as lighting. I know I have a video on character lighting, and you can almost grab any one of those lighting situations, and it's going to give you something to work with. Anyway, I think that's a good way, just sort of approach for a lot of people. Consider the value scheme, maybe doing some of the practices from the art club to get your head in the right place. Think about the history. Think about how you can get something simple, such as a sash of fabric, and make it more interesting. Make it multiple pieces. Subdivide it into other things. give some other kinds of textures and materials into it, but keep the same basic shape. Yeah. Okay, enough on that. Lot to look at. I'm going to go ahead and close that. We'll go on to the next piece, which is Escher. Boom. Okay, Escher says, I like the idea of having him standing by the water with a reflection. When I try to make that work, I notice that now he is a bit small for the image, or he feels like he's squished against the top edge. Should I scale him up so that less water is showing? Yeah, I mean, it's a cool image. If it wasn't for a card, for a Planeswalker card, then having the reflection thing could be really cool. But yeah, in this case, I would say that it's not a good use of the space because it makes him so small. And it's not giving us enough results with that. How else maybe would be a way to handle this? Would you just scale him up, Anna, or would you lay it out a different way?
Yeah, so for me, it was the same things that that you just stated with the use of space, with his head bumping nearly against the top part, and yeah, then there's so much on the left and right that isn't used well. Also here, I pushed the design a little bit further. It is a good place to start. It's something unique, but I don't read them as monk yet much. Maybe a little bit more stuff can help, like I don't know, a little bit more belts or like little pendants or necklaces with holy symbols on it. Also,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the most to me, this was maybe a subjective thing, but I felt like the ethereal arm is such something so special and unique that
Mm-hmm.
other characters don't have at MTG, as far as I know, the Planeswalkers. So I would stage that a little bit more. It's so far in the back,
Mm-hmm.
you barely can notice. Make maybe the front arm be the more ethereal, the ethereal one, or having a different pose where you can see it well and it's not so much obscured. Also, the background needs some ideas, maybe the waterfall that you mentioned, or some buildings, some vegetation. Yeah, anything that just could push a little bit um, the storytelling so that we know where he is or where he's from. Maybe it's his hometown or something like that. It tells us a little bit more about the place where he is at now. So these were my thoughts. And yeah, the second one is the same with the lighting. Yeah, be a little bit more bold with the shadow, make shadow and light really more stand out from each other. Um, Something that we tackle at art club. It's just what I
Mm-hmm.
can just advertise my art club with each piece. I'm sorry, but I just think it would be such a good study for you guys.
Hit on a lot of the same things I was thinking. Well, you were talking about the arm being unique among the planeswalkers, and it's true. And it reminded me in business, there is the acronym of USP. And as artists, we can kind of remember it as well, which is unique. I'll just write it as I'm saying it. Selling point. It is what is unique about this company, this product, this whatever it is, among the others in its group. And you want to focus on that. You want to highlight that. That's what you advertise. Amazon.com. What is one of their USP? Free shipping. If you have Amazon Prime, you get free shipping. That's a big deal. Most companies don't offer that. And so, therefore, they advertise it. That's a major push from them. And the USP with this guy is an ethereal gold arm, which means that it needs to be whichever the featured arm is, whichever the most visible arm is, whichever arm is doing the pointing or whatever, the action, that's the arm that needs to be featured. So, yeah, I'm with you. I would switch the arms, or I guess you would flip the image so that that's his right arm. and then make that one the golden arm. And is there another way that you could even show it more than that? That would be an idea. I like the basic shapes. I think he's got a nice shape as far as the bare chest vertically with like the sleeve on either side, and the loose pants. I mean, that's working for me. But again, it's how can we get this and make it more interesting, make it more unique, give us some more things to look at. And I put together a collection of reference images. I went out on Pinterest for a couple of minutes and just looked up some images, and go out there and look at some of this stuff. And it doesn't have to necessarily be exactly the same sort of thing you're looking for, but these can be great ideas, different ideas of how to make a sleeve like this. And in this case, no, that's a sleeve, okay, but maybe it should be a really long, baggy sleeve like that. That's kind of cool. And the way that it cuts across sideways into his belt, that's kind of cool. That could work. Or this guy, where he's got pouches and gold adorned belts going along, or the white sleeves with gold little patterns on it. That's neat. And so go through this and look at how they make these characters richer. Look at the layers of stuff that they are wearing, and see if you can't get some ideas of how to make him more engaging. Or the golden tattoos. I was looking at, some of these guys have like golden tattoos and eyes and stuff. And so look at that sort of stuff and see how we can add more to the character. Yeah, we've got to repose this. Somebody in the chat here said, well, what if we were actually looking down on him? Kikoe? Yeah, maybe if we were looking down on him, you could show the water reflection too. That is immediately like, if you wanted to do the water reflection thing, that's the best way you could do it. But I don't know that it's even worth it, because that part of the image wouldn't even be visible on a card. So I don't see sacrificing the space in order to do that. If I was just going to go with one of your compositions, I'm probably going with this one. I mean, that's nice. Or we doing this one and you're just maxing out his size so that he's filling the frame a lot more. But either one of these is actually working. The basic design is working. I like this sort of face. I like the sort of expression going on. Yeah, and with the background, can we get these normal mountains and make them fantasy mountains? We want them bigger. We want clouds drifting through them. We want waterfalls coming off of them. It's reality exaggerated, right? A mythic version of reality. I think the colors could work. You're keeping with basically a golden color scheme, yellowish tint to stuff. Yeah, that could work. That's one of my thoughts here. Any additional ones before we move on?
No, I think that covered pretty much everything that also I had to say. So I think continue.
Oh yeah, we don't have the tattoos on the other arm, but they would need to be added on there.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Esther, I don't know if Esther or Escher, but I appreciate you joining. And make sure that if you've got some more ideas, toss them out on the Discord, get some feedback from people. Juan is up next. Okay, Juan has a couple of comments. Thanks for putting on the challenges. Just trying to stick to the process. Concerned that the image or character feels stagnant. And how far is this concept or sketch from one made by a pro? In this case, I feel like maybe you got ahead of yourself some with the lighting and the colors, because a lot of the image it's just fuzzy. It almost feels like you try to just do a rush painting of it. I don't necessarily need a painted version. I mean, you can just give me lines and some values with just a color overlay on it in order to know what kind of color scheme you're going to want. I would prefer to have more attention put into the actual design of the character and being a little more specific about that than being off over into the lighting and coloring at this point or putting much time into that. Overall, I do think this scene is working pretty well with the really warm kind of golds and those tones on the upper body against basically a very desaturated background. I think that's working pretty well. I do have some other thoughts, and I'll toss those to you after Anna gets some of her thoughts into this. Watch some
Yeah.
observations here.
So I like that he tried to push the lighting already. I have the feeling like he's going for a lighting where just his or most of his upper body is in light and the rest is receding a little bit more into shadow. I like
Mm-hmm.
that idea. It gives this sunrise feeling and
Yeah.
it's really epic. I think it's a really epic lighting, and yeah, I like that he tried that. And what I the first thing that I was a little bit feeling cheated on is I felt like Clint told us there is no stuff, and I would have loved to do a stuff, and I had to be very restrictive with myself to not paint a stuff pose because there are so many and there's much more easy to pull off. And yeah, you said he's a fist fighter,
Mm-hmm.
and staff would read as he is a staff fighter. So please don't use stuffs. And yeah, there we are with the stuff. I don't know whether you will say something about that or whether it's allowed now or not. The
No,
floor
let's
as
pause your thoughts there for a second, because yeah, he is a hand-to-hand fighter, and he wouldn't be having a weapon in a project like this if you're working with a company, especially on a major character, not some secondary or minor character, and they don't specify that major game character having a particular weapon. You can't just give them a weapon. Now, if you want to try it, then you need to check with the director first. You check with your art director and say, hey, I think I've got a really cool idea or pose if he can be handling a staff and see if that's okay. And you guys are welcome to treat it that way. You're welcome to shoot me a message and say, hey, Clint, I'm working on some poses and can I use a staff? Is that okay? So if you need a clarification like that, shoot me a message. I'll let you know. In this case, no. That's otherwise he would have a different set of skills in the game, and so we've got to drop the staff. All right, please continue on it.
okay. I was just wondering. Just as a clarification, because we wrote, oh no, it's not meant as a stuff to fight with. But if you just see the painting and look at it in your card, you would expect him to be able to use the stuff as a weapon. So even if you say it's just a stick for hiking or something, people will read it as a weapon. It's just how our brain works in this moment. So that is why we must be so strict with you guys there, because this is also a design challenge and this is what this communicates, so this is an important detail to take care of. I also realized he's pretty close to the first one we are looking at with the design, so this proves that the design is not very unique yet, because it's the first thing people would think about when they have to draw a monk. And so get a little bit more stuff into there. You can use the ideas probably that Clint was giving the first submission we had a look on today. And yeah, for the painting itself, I like the color ideas. I just think two things you must really pay attention to while continuing this. First one is edges that you already said, Clint. So decide and work out some sharp edges, at least around your focal point, which is the character itself. Yeah, have more edge control. And the second one is a little bit with value color combination. It is a tricky thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't pay attention to your values, this is what we are covering in Art Club also at the moment, your colors get muddy. I have this in my second PDF that I uploaded, because it's just so much you have to handle with values, and then you put color on top of it that maybe doesn't even fit the value, and
Yeah.
your image starts to get muddy.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why it's such a tricky thing to use color in your painting if you're not good with values yet. Let's put it like that. I'm not stating that you're not good with values yet. It's just an extra level of complexity. And I feel like a lot of your painting is using muddy colors because you didn't match the colors with the right values. Yeah, these were my thoughts so far. I like it in the overview. I like this shiny, warm, bright light. Just these changes I'd consider in your case. I'm finished.
Yeah, as I've kind of been just sketching here, if you want to keep basically that same pose and have the hand out there, just make it a little tree that's growing, and just have him just kind of resting his hand up on one of the branches or on the trunk of the tree, and that sort of adjustment.
Oh,
That's very
that's
simple.
beautiful.
Yeah, simple
That's
adjustment
such
you
a
can do.
beautiful idea, Clint.
And
Oh,
because
okay.
hey, you feel like he's probably a connected with nature sort of guy, and then that can give you the opportunity to do like these like almost bonsai style trees that are very natural in this setting, and you just have this cool sort of twisting tree. If you ever look at trees that grow on the side of a windy cliff, like literally all of their branches twist and bend in a certain direction, and it gives just the coolest personalities to these trees because they're under constant force from that wind. So I'm thinking that way. But if you do that, then you probably need to have like the hair and stuff going the direction of whatever that tree is. Otherwise, it'd be a little odd. Anyway, you could think about that. It could be going backwards. I bet anybody would think about it. This sort of loopy thing, I'm not a big fan of that, of going around him. Instead, I'll probably just make this a series of different fabrics, and they're just individual pieces that are coming down. And some of them could be longer, some of them could be shorter, and just let them kind of hang down like that. And again, instead of having like one's kind of boring. So can we have multiples? And even if you look at her there, that can we see the underside of some of them maybe and get kind of a more three-dimensional feel of it? Can we have another one coming down here, and let it be a bit of a larger grouping like this? Hybrid X, yeah, not the place to advertise your stuff. If you want some feedback on your projects, you can go out to the group page. And with the hair, the idea here is that either he's bald, which is fine, or he needs to be having like a proper big spray of hair. More like Yasuo from League of Legends. He's got it bunched up here, tight there, but then he's got like this sort of thing going on. Not just a little ponytail. It becomes this distinguishing mass of splay of hair behind him. It changes up his silhouette there. And with the arm, I'm actually going to show you a little example of the arm going forwards, but we want to treat this more transparent. It's translucent. It's magic. It's not corporeal. And so in the middle, basically, it's going to be more see-through. On the edges, it becomes more opaque because you've seen more of it as it rounds around. And so we're going to just be treating it a bit more that way. Yeah, so in this case, like this is a good example, Juan and everyone else, that it's not a total rework of the image. And this is a good test for the direction. A lot of things are going on. I think the lighting's working. I think a lot of the things with the colors working. Honestly, a lot of things with the values working. You just need to clean up a lot of the edges. Then also look for places that you can do a bit more of the light against dark. And that's what I was doing down here, is trying to get like the pants being distinctly darker, and not as much light and dark pattern. Go ahead and just let them be darker. I let there be more atmospheric fog and a bit more light hitting that back there. And that way he can go from basically being lit on the top to being shadowed or silhouetted on the bottom. And then the things around him, behind him, are actually lighter than him on the bottom, which allows him to show up there. And then this becomes more a silhouette. And then these can get darker. They basically go from light to dark as they go up. You get darker at the top because there's not as much atmospherics going around them up there. Yeah, so good stuff, good stuff. And I'll wrap it up there. Good entry. Do focus on that design. Let's make sure that that's really working well for us. If I just look over these, I mean, these guys feel like they're unique. They feel like they're a specific person. They feel like they have a history. They have a personality, and that's what we're looking for. Next up is Kikoi. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Juan, you're welcome. I'm glad you're in the challenge. Okay, one says, thank you, didn't manage to do much lighting, as I spent most of my time on the anatomy and perspective. You prioritized correctly. I'll be adding more armor as well, and background detail. Now, I noticed you were putting a lot of images out in the Discord, trying to get a lot of feedback from people, and I want to commend that. You're putting in the effort, going through a lot of iterations to try to find a direction that felt good for you. And I actually want to zoom in and help people be able to see some of those. You got her riding on a stag. Have her on the branch, but she's in a more passive crouch. So I like what you have in her do, which is a bit more active a stance. But being up in the tree looking down, that's a cool angle. I like that. It's from the hunter's point of view almost. And then in different versions of the posing. And yeah, and then basically moving from that hand holding the bow to the other hand holding the bow. Okay, you had a chance to take a look at this, and I know that you are a Warcraft fan, so kick it off, Anna.
Yeah. So, yeah, I also want to thank you, Kikwe, for being out there, posting your stuff, being active. Was really cool to follow your process on these pieces. I think she even posted stuff for the monk, so she even tried both and then decided to go for the night elf one. So yeah, I think it's a really good process she's following. She's really doing it step by step and getting feedback and help, and that's a very important thing to do. I also like the idea of having a top view within this tree. Also having a top view on her. I like that she's very dynamic and she's in the movement to pull out a arrow, and she did not have it yet, so it's a very active pose. What I say about this piece might be something personal. I don't like that there is a super, super, super high angle on her, so that we miss out most of her design of her upper body. I just see boob and legs, and I would have preferred to lower the camera a bit so that we see a little bit more of her upper body, get a little bit more of her design. This might be something personal.
No, I think you're right there, and I like the higher angle because it gets us to be able to look down through the trees. But the particular pose and this particular angle basically eliminates our view of, collarbone down to the pelvis, and I think, and I do. I have some little sketches that I'll pull up here in a minute. But yeah, you're right on that one. I find that a little off. Just how much overlapping is going on there that we lose too much in the anatomy.
Yeah. So also the pose doesn't look really stable to me. I don't know why it is that. Maybe it is the angle. Maybe it is because her legs are maybe not aligned correctly in perspective. I'm not sure. I would have to check that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I like the how to say that, stableness, stability
Yes,
of
stability.
that, the stability. I'm sorry, it's late here. The stability on the second that she did, there is much more stability in this piece because she has one arm down. She tried that. I saw that. She had also a design where she has it on the ground, but it wouldn't work with the bow. So she tried to find an in between, having a dynamic pose, but crouching, but pulling out the.
Hmm.
So she tried to combine a lot of things and ended up with something that looks a little bit like she could tip over very
Hmm.
easily. Um, yeah,
Yeah, no, she
these
can.
were.
Yeah, because like if the reference photo over here on the left side, she has a photo of someone, maybe her, I don't know, uh, in this basic pose, but it only works because of that third contact with the hand on the ground. Otherwise, you would fall over. If you pick that hand up, then you can't maintain it. You could adjust it so that her left knee is touching the ground there, and so it's the ball of her foot and her left knee. In which case, that triangle of the contact would keep her up. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't balance out quite right.
Yeah. And the last thing, I really like the design of the thing on her right arm. So for us, the left one. But I don't get the Warcraft vibe from it.
Hmm.
I don't feel like it's fitting the shape language of a Warcraft piece. So, and this is a little bit what this challenge is about, to get the shapes and get into Warcraft style, and mimic that a little bit. And
Hmm.
I think it's a really cool thing. It's really thought well of with all these metal, and she pulled this off really well. I just feel like it's not the shape language we are looking for. Yeah, but that's all for me.
Actually, I'm gonna get up. I just need to grab something real quick. Why don't you give them a note, maybe on the colors and the lighting? I'll be right back.
Okay, on the color and the lighting. I didn't take note on that because you said yourself you're not much into lighting yet. I would give you the hint to try to have not everything of her at the same amount of light. Maybe we just see everything below her eyes in light, like there's a double light or something over her. So she gets a little bit more obscured and we get more of that huntress feel. And this is something you see quite often with professional art, that they don't put like the whole character with, on one light, but having like this, it's called noir lighting, where you have like a cut of a shadow directly over the face or directly over the body. Yeah. And for the color, I'd say, yeah, I think the colors harmonizing really well. You could try also having a complementary scheme and see whether this works for you as well.
Hmm.
Yep.
Okay, I do need. I do see some swatches highlighted in my feed. Let me make sure I'm hitting on those. Okay,
Yeah.
so you are in the chat. Cool. I think she's not firm on the tree. Correct. Can I keep the upper body and change the legs? Okay, yeah, let's address that. I pulled up a couple of images before stream in order to sort of check that and see how you might be able to address it. So let's look at those images. Okay, first thing I wanted to say is, Anna, you're right. The right arm armor piece, actually just mentioned that first. It's just not Warcraft. It would fit certain games. You could tweak it and it fit certain games, but it's not really a Warcraft design. So I would be looking at these. I went out and grabbed some Warcraft images, And in order to try to get a better idea of what is that aesthetic, what would your options be? And a really common thing with Warcraft is just the pauldrons, the shoulder armor. And they're usually that sort of shape right there. They have a couple of standard shapes, and there's usually like two pieces, like one piece on top of another piece. And so either give her that or don't give her anything. But the other piece doesn't match the IP, the intellectual property of this game. So we've got to take that out. And I think I saw some that were a little more like nature based, and so they had like some ties around their arm, like this down here on the left side. So if you wanted to do that and make her a little more naturey, you could do that instead of necessarily the bigger armor bits. And the same thing with the forearm guard. This is a classic forearm guard over here. It's a solid piece with kind of a curved point on the end of it instead of what we have here. So we've got to match that up. Look at something like that. You can change the colors, you can tweak the pattern, but it's got to follow that same basic Warcraft aesthetic that has been already established. Also consider giving her a hood. Even if the hood is laid back, it might be interesting, but you don't really have her having a cloak. You would have to add a cloak for that. Okay, assuming that you address some of that, and also the bow. Warcraft loves big, fancy bows with cool curves and gravings and stuff on it. So we really need to make this thing a lot more complex with little bits in it and big curvy shapes, and it's all overboard. It's all overboard a little bit, exaggerated, but we can get that addressed. As far as the pose, let's turn that off. I came across this image on Sketchfab of Spider-Gwen, and that was actually pretty close. So I could see the lower body being something like that. Where one of the issues with the pose currently is that right leg of hers is going straight forwards to where in the direction that she's looking, which isn't manageable unless your arm is down. But naturally, your hips would rotate a little bit, like what you're seeing here, so that leg is partly sideways. It's like at a 3/4. And so she's touching it with her toe out here with the angle of her foot. The angle of her foot isn't doing that, it's doing this. And the leg is turned more that way instead of straight forwards up and down like this. That would allow you to twist her body in a slightly more natural way, and it would probably change that back leg as well in that pose. Now this isn't perfect, that was just somebody's 3D model, but I think it would be more in line with what you're looking for. Then this was also in Sketchfab, which is this Archer 3D model. And this might give you an idea of the upper body, and you could kind of mesh the two of these together and get something slightly more accurate. One of the things that you really have to decide how you're going to pose this, which is her chest coming up or is she leaning over? Is she doing this or is she doing this? And that needs to be carried out throughout the flow of the body. Right now her chest is out, but it's like she's leaning over with her chest out. I don't know that you'd be doing that. I'm almost thinking that she's doing this shoulder over thing. But got to take some more pictures and check that for yourself. And let's see if we can get a little more, even a foreshortened version of the torso back in there. So I put a white overlay over this and did some lines to try to work that a little bit. Like if the leg was turned a little more this way, adjusted that leg some, and then if you had the upper body and just saw even a little bit of the torso there down, and then that arm coming up. And this is another issue where it's not working real well with, it looks like there's just an arrow floating behind that shoulder piece. Um, and then the hair is back there too. It looks a little odd. I would switch it so that the wind is actually coming from behind her, so that it gets that hair out of the way, so that we can see her quiver, and we can see her grabbing that arrow, and the hair is not going to be messing with it. And then it gives that hair coming over part of the face that almost makes her more concealed, makes her a little more hidden. I would run it that direction with the idea. What do you think about that? Do you think that would answer some of the issues, Anna, or would you take it a different
Yeah,
way?
yeah, of course. So I think it's much better to have a little bit of the torso being visible.
Mm-hmm.
And in that pose also, even though there are some Warcraft females with big boobies, I would tune them down in this piece, because you will end up again with just, yeah, boobs and legs being visible if you make them too large. Have them a little bit more tuned down and show a little bit of the upper body, and this pose can work very well for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Also, be paying attention to the size of the legs compared to the upper body. In this case, like the arm and the leg are not that big a different in size. And if we just look at the size of her upper body compared to her lower body is either a lot too small, or her upper body is a lot too big. If we were to even just grab this and scale it down and push it up, we could almost just do like this sort of thing, and then try to connect up the lower body and the upper body. I was saying that leg would, that's kind of turning this way so that that leg could then come out. And then maybe that knee is even down and then comes back up. But we've got to get that leg proportional to the upper body, something along that idea. Okay, got to be moving on. We had, what, 11 entries this time? And so last time we only had 8. We could take more time.
Yeah.
Next up is Christoph, is the closest I'm gonna guess. I love your little drawing down here. There is you, and then this is the anxiety-inducing distance away from your comfort zone. Well, thank you for stepping out of your comfort zone. This is where you learn. So, I know that it might be a little hard for you, but we'll try to be fair. You know, there is a lot of good stuff going on here. In that, it's very understandable, and I do commend this. It is an understandable image that is clear, that has simple values that represent what's going on, and I appreciate that. The thing that came to my mind was that it is just reserved. Just, it's restrained a little bit. It seems a little flat. Not a lot of action going on. It's just kind of passive. It's just kind of restrained. Which in some images is what you want, but I think for this we want a little bit more dynamic. This is a splash art that should, I don't know, be a little more engaging. So as to that end, or what are your other observations here? Also just, I do some similar outline sketches on this that we'll take a look at after Anna's comments.
Yeah. So, Christoph, I also liked the readability of the piece, the backlighting idea. Her design is already much close to the Warcraft design, with the huge pauldrons and the shape of the ears. And she looks a little bit like a blood elf to me, but I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Look up some of the Night Elf Warcraft paintings and see a little bit what's the difference between these. So they're a little bit more, what to say, not manly, but they're a little bit more, not thick. How to say that? They're a little bit more, looking stronger, while the blood elves look a little bit more like, la, 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 I'm a slim, tiny person. There are some minor things, but this is just nitpicky stuff. So for the poses, I also wrote down it's a little bit undynamic, stiff, and a little bit boring to look at because it's like, oh, yeah, there's a little bit blood on the tray. I sniffed that, and she's like, yeah, I just killed something there, but it's gone. I ate it already. Nothing left for you there. So having something a little bit more engaging, maybe the cat could be jumping. Also, it's all like going from left to right on one plane of depth. I don't know if this is the right way to put this. So it's just a left to right picture, which makes things a lot more calm and harmonious. It would be better if you want to go for something dynamic, to have something that goes from from more depth towards us. So how to say that? Not left to right, but from the back to front.
Yeah, front to
back. Can
back.
I put it like that? Yeah, front to back movement. So coming toward us, the cat jumping toward us. She may be commanding the cat to attack us or something. Would be much more dynamic, adding more perspective to that, and give more the feeling of movement. I see from the value studies, if I put them up again, oh, somehow it closed for me. I must get the page back later. What did I? Can you show this on stream? Then I'm gonna look on stream, or I open it again. I don't know why. The value studies of.
Oh yeah, I can pull up.
It somehow it closed the Dropbox page for me. Okay, so as you can see in the value, he's not so confident yet with values and the usage of values, so he's very subtle in the changes and not thinking much about light directions yet. And I'd suggest to be a little bit more brave and bold and try different things. I always like, for a Huntress piece, I like the noir lighting that I already, while you were gone, I thought might be a good thing for Kikoya to use as well. So where you have just parts of the body, parts of the face being lit, and the rest remaining in shadow, doubled light, or things like this. This gives just much of a hunter feeling. And I would suggest being a little bit more experimental with the light setting for this piece as well. Yeah. You need me to go on, or all good?
Nope.
Yep.
Okay. The fact that it's all going left to right is, it just keeps it kind of boring. We'd prefer to have some little angle. You want to twist the seam a little bit, or move the camera a little bit. I do have to mention, I was thinking the same thing as M. Deborah here in the chat, which is they wouldn't really be able to both fit on that branch. As with her there, and as thick as her body is, and then as thick as that cat is, there's no way that cat can walk behind her on an 8-inch branch. So that's certainly something that has to be adjusted there. That branch would need to be twice as thick minimum for that to work. Also, make sure that we can see the other ear. We can't see the other ear back there. We'd still have the other ear sticking up there. And then as far as the design with the Night Elf, Blood Elf, I'm going to be honest, I'm not a Warcraft aficionado. So if you want to do one or the other, I don't frankly care very much, although Anna might yell at you. So let's go through kind of my thought of, if you gave it to me, what would I think to do with it? And this is sort of how I would take it. Let me walk through my thought here. Is if you lower the camera angle, it's going to make it a little more dynamic. And then if we can get it to follow the angle of the tree a bit more, then that also helps. So I went out to Sketchfab, found a tiger in a similar pose. This is just placeholder, right? I was trying to do it quickly, just kind of giving you an idea. Tiger, and got it to an angle that would be mimicking the angle that we're looking for. Okay, cool. And then I found this ninja dude posing, and I can rotate it to somewhere near the angle we want. Okay, cool. And then, oh, that's the other one. And then, so I did some lines over top of that in order to kind of get an idea. So here the branch is, we're lower than the branch, we're sort of looking up at it, you know, and we have the dimensionality of it here. And they're moving forwards across this branch. I would change the legs on her. You don't want to use the legs that you have on that one. It's an odd pose. It's somebody that was in the middle of a crouching animation. So I would adjust that. You could even use the same legs as here. You could lower her down a little bit because you could just get... let me get rid of that. You could have her doing that where she's bouncing here on her feet and her legs are doing that sort of thing. It's almost like a Spider-Man pose. In which case, she would all have to be lower in order to be down at the level of the tree. We can do that if you want to keep that same sort of pose. And then this is also a place where you could just have that hand out where she's like, what do you see? You know, and she's kind of grabbing him, and then she can have that other dagger. You almost want that dagger to be silhouetted so it can show up. So if you put the leg there, you might need to have that arm coming out here further, so the dagger silhouette would be clearer out over there. Something on that line. That's what I'm thinking. A lot of the same stuff you have going on right now, but we need to find a more interesting camera angle for it. And using some of these online models that you can just pull up and play with in your browser can be a great way to do that. Or even if you find one that helps you get the basic idea, then you go, okay, now I know what I need to go shoot with my friend in order to get it a bit more accurate. I wasn't really thinking about colors or anything. I'm more concerned about, let's make sure that we have a cooler scene that is more accurate. In fact, if you want to focus on that and not even send in a color version next time, I'm okay with that, just as far as the learning process. And then also, can we do some sort of patterning or something on the beast, the big cat? I don't know. I didn't really research Warcraft animals and what their designs are or what their colors are or anything. But it seems like we might be able to push that in some way to make him a bit more interesting. So.
Yeah, there are even purple ones or purple tigers, or there's a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
You can get there.
So I would just look at to do that as well. Okay, next is Marzina. Okay. First thing I have to say here, this is... I'm almost obliged to say it's not in the template that I provided, which... Obviously, you know what you're doing. These are good concepts. But if a company does ask for the image to be provided in a certain way, then we really do need to make sure that that's followed. And it's also about the education side of it, that I can see how you got to here, and then other people can learn by seeing how you got to here. So going forwards, it would be appreciated if you could follow the template, make sure that you're putting in the images in your references and that sort of thing, so that it is available for us. The more that I can see of your process and how you got here, the more that I can help you with that. But that being said, let's talk about these images on the whole. Obviously, very good impression from these images. They are from somebody who has a good idea of their process, how to handle the lighting, the colors, the poses, all of this. And this does get a lot to a lot of personal preference because not one of these color schemes is, so much better than the others, or the pose is so much better than the others. But we can talk about some issues and how to improve them, or things to maybe pay attention to. Let me shoot it to you first, Anna. Any particular thoughts, suggestions, or feedback that you'd like to provide?
Yeah, so it is doesn't have to be said that Messina is a very advanced and very good artist already.
Mm-hmm.
I think she even did some mentorships with Anna Steinbauer, another
Yes.
person who works for Magic the Gathering. She is she has her fundamentals down. She has her studies down. Um, I just want to say the same as Clint, or just elaborate on that a second, with the template thing. This challenge is not about you throwing 3 ideas at us and we pick and say, yeah, let's go for composition 2. It looks good, and go to the next one. This is not what this challenge is about. They are all 3 wonderful, beautiful concepts. They are all beautiful pieces of art, and I like them all as they are there. And each of them could work. And I think this is really, really good way of doing composition and lighting and colors.
Mm-hmm.
This all goes without saying. It's just um, we try to, well, it's a bad word to say, but we try to force you to go through a specific process to make this a new habit of yours, to have these value studies, to have these color studies, to have working with references, deciding on your own for one composition in the end. This is also part of the process, and
Mm-hmm.
showing me, okay, this is the one I went for. How can I improve that? We can't go through 3 of these pieces and say, on this one you could do this, on this one you could do that. So
Yeah.
we also won't pick for you the right one. This is your job to do here. So that is why it's a little bit hard for me to say much for these pieces, because the only thing that I would maybe push further is thinking about the designs. Not that there are bad designs and there is already much variety in them, but show us for one style you're going for some iterations, to see that you really planned this character, not just went for, yeah, it's looking good, I'm going to paint that and that's it. We want to see that you went through the progress of designing that character. This is important to me, and this is part of the challenge, for me at least. Um, as an example, I will be, not that I'm a model or something, but I will be doing first a set of different concepts with very different cultural looking monks. I have one model that is looking more Arab. I have one model that looks more Asian, one that looks more Occidental, stuff like that. And then I pick one of these and do iterations of this one with different shape design, shape language, more rounded forms, more spiky forms, and I will see what works in the end. So this is what I
Mm-hmm.
try for myself for this challenge, and then illustrate that one.
Yep.
It's just a recommendation. It's not that she ended up with bad designs.
Oh no,
I
no,
like
that's not
I
it.
like them. It's all good. But I want to see that in this challenge. It's so we can help you and say, okay, this is a good direction. This you could have done differently, stuff like that. So this is what the challenge here also is for. But yeah, that's basically all I can say, because I really like what she has here. I just elaborate a little bit, make some shape language clear, and yeah, if she wants to know my opinion, I like composition 2 the most. If I had to pick one for the Planeswalker card, for general illustration, I think all 3 of them are very solid pieces. It's just a personal preference. Why do I like this one? Because it's a more unique pose. The first one is a little bit typical monk pose. It's all working, all good. I just feel like there's something new that I didn't see before yet, and I like the color scheme of this one pretty much, and this gives me this warm vibe again, and it feels to me more like a white card, than the others, because it's this peaceful, warm, composition there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these are my thoughts. You might not be happy with what I say, maybe I'm not
Oh, I
helpful with this
really
one,
am.
but
So yeah.
so yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, I do have some notes. I'm gonna turn those on because I don't remember exactly what I wrote down. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be said. Also, maybe you flip the image and you didn't flip it back because you have all the left arms being the magic arm. So that's got to switch. This is also, maybe I wasn't clear enough in the outline, but if he does have hair, then it needs to be pulled back, not in a ponytail. Then it needs to be a big spray of hair behind him. And that changes that sort of thing. Otherwise, just make him bald. But he doesn't have a ponytail because there are other planeswalkers that have long ponytails. But there aren't any planeswalkers that necessarily have this sort of hairstyle. So it would be kind of one or the other on that. The design for number one, I think, reads the most monk. Like the design of the character in the third one feels more like a soldier, with the big solid breastplate and the pieces, and yeah, it's just the more of a shape that reminds me of other things besides monk. And it doesn't have any of the hanging fabrics from the waistline. It has an actual like cloak on the back. So I'm not a big fan of that. I love the lighting. I love the colors, that sort of thing. So if you want to go that way, you can. And I would also adjust this if you use some sort of combination of the white gold cape, because that's basically the same thing that Shazam has. The big DC character, that he has a white cape with a big gold thick trim on the edge of it. So we would want to find a different combination. Maybe it's a scale pattern in gold, or maybe it's a gold cape with a white trim on it. But some variation that won't be too close to another popular character. So that hose wise, yeah, I think the third one is right for some things. I don't think for this one. I think it's just a little too static. I think maybe it would fit something else a little better. Yeah, we see your comment there on it. I'm actually having the best response to the first one. I like the idea of like the karst mountains coming up here, and they're not reading real karst, but if you follow these up as karst mountains that then break off, and they continue up in fragments, but they keep that same super vertical edge on them, and then there's the waterfalls coming off of them. That's a really cool idea, and I like that. So I'm gonna give you feedback on that. Yeah, let's take out the cape. The cape's not working for me as much. Makes me feel a little less monk, I think. So let's go with more stuff around the waist and the lower body as far as the hanging fabrics. I'm liking more of this design. That the fabric, I can see like the fabric coming over this, and maybe they hang down the back side, so it's not a full cape. It's like the ends of the pieces going behind him hang back. Now Anna likes the center one. I'm not sure what's going on. Is this just a gold piece that's hanging down? Because I'm not compositional wise, that's kind of odd. If that's a fabric piece, we probably need to get more blowiness to it, let it curve around. Otherwise, it feels like there's just this gold line that's kind of coming across there. And then it's mimicked by the same angle of another gold line there, which looks a little odd. That probably needs to be adjusted. Or if you have this pose, I would consider swapping his head so that the body is turned one way and then the head is turned the opposite way. So that it's not too imbalanced. And that,
Yeah, I think I like this because I'm doing the challenge myself, and you try a lot of different poses, and you end up with the same poses as many artists did before you, typical for monks and stuff like that. And I felt like I saw like composition 1 a lot, I saw composition 3 a lot, this pose, and I just felt like with this leg up and like he's with this line of action with the chest out, something like that. So I like just this. It just was new to me. This is what I liked about this pose most, and also the background with this clouds and the warm light. I think these are the reasons why I went for composition 2, because for a white card I usually expect a very warm painting, but this might just be me. But the cards in my white pack are all very warm toned, colored paintings. Maybe there are others out there, but this is what my experience told me. Yeah.
Yeah. I get that poses can get really similar, or I've seen that pose before, but everything's been used. Everything has been used by somebody. And like, even though composition 1 is, oh, I think I've kind of seen that before. Yeah, but as soon as I look at it, I know what that guy's deal is. I know he's a martial artist. And that has to be the sort of read. And sometimes it's a bit straightforward. Sometimes it's not real subtle with the pose. That this is the Planeswalker that's the martial artist. None of the other ones are martial artists. None of the other Planeswalkers are going to pose like that. However, you might have other Planeswalkers that pose like 2 and 3. Right? And so we got to find what this guy could do that none of those other guys could do. Not what he could do that no other character in any other game could do, but within his group, what makes him unique. So that's why it makes me fall to 1, personally.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, from that point of view, I also say 1 is stronger than 3, then more dynamic and all. Not so static.
Yeah, because I could see Jace posing in 2, and I could see Jace posing in 3, but you're not going to see Jace posing in 1.
Yeah, I see.
Right?
Yeah, maybe I had even a little bit of Jace in my back head, and it just you reminded me so much of this is a Planeswalker.
Yeah.
That I thought, okay, composition 2 must be it.
But I could see, using one of these, it could work. I particularly love the harmony of colors, and I hope that you don't differ off of that sort of approach very much, because I do love that. Can we get? I didn't probably specify it, but maybe a sense of translucency or magic on the arm. I know that these are sketches. It's easy to get into it looks like an arm that's glowing, but this is actually a magic ethereal arm. So we want to make sure that it doesn't just look like an arm that's glowing. And that applies to everybody. Hopefully, Marzina, you find that helpful. And look forward to seeing what you come up with in the next 2 weeks. Next up, we have Matt Oates. All right, Matt. Oh, yeah, I remember I did some little sketches on this too. Okay. It says, I did 2 options for the pose. The arms out and the arms down. I think he needs to be looking heavenward to really show he's in a worshiping pose and not in a worship me pose. Says the legs feel a bit short, but it was a last minute change. We'll get back to it. I think more movement may be needed too. Ponytail or robes blowing in the wind, maybe. Yeah, I agree. The pose is quite static, and so we need to find some opportunity to have some fabric blowing. and that would definitely help. I do have my notes as far as some little sketches and stuff. What was your reactions to this, Anna?
Yeah, so the pose was also the thing that struck me first. So before saying that, I like the overall idea. He followed
Hmm.
really much the brief. He thought about how to place it in these mountains and all that. So I like that really much. Um, I think just that the pose looks a little bit like um, do you know that effect when there are people so bulky that they cannot properly put their arms anymore close to their body?
Yeah.
They're so huge that they're just hulky walking, yeah, so Hulk like walking through over this planet. I had the feeling with that. So he is not that bulky, but he holds his arm like that.
Hmm.
And I don't know why, but it looks to me like a little bit maybe this is super subjective, but he looks to me a little bit dumb because
Mm.
of that. So like he's not super intelligent because
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I'm Hulk. So this it's just the arm
It's just
pose
kind of a
or
brute pose. What you would
yeah,
expect
yeah.
for a kind of
So
brutish guy. Yeah.
yeah, so I changed the arms. Maybe not that worship me pose is maybe also not the best. Experiment a little bit more, having one arm closer, or what might also help is to have the hands in a little bit more um, tense pose. For example, a fist or something like that. Because if you hold them, it's really they are super relaxed, but the rest of the arm isn't, and this is why it gets this Hulk kind of look because you think his whole arm is relaxed, but it doesn't touch his body because he's so bulky. So
Hmm.
I maybe a little bit more tension in the hands. When you look on the references, they are all having very, um, yeah, communicating hands. They're doing something with their hands, like the one from Rutkowski on the bottom. This is he's holding the magic there. This is such a tense pose for the hand and also the one above that. So I'd go for something more interesting with that. For the design, I think it's cool that he tried many different layers with the belt and with the armor, and yeah, had some fun with the design there. I think that's good, but I don't feel like they connect very well with each other. So especially the shoulder piece um, has some shapes I don't see anywhere repeated.
Hmm.
So they feel a little bit off and not part of it. So maybe having something more that harmonizes with the other pieces would have been better. Yeah, for the folds, get references. Don't just make them out of your head for the trousers. Try to get proper references for these and watch your values and edge work.
Hmm.
Um, these are the hints I have here for now. I always try to not do like 20 different things, but those that hit me most, so Clint can elaborate on some of his own thoughts that might be different. But yeah.
Yeah, I do gotta, I do need to point out, like I wrote up here, China mountains. These are more of a Alps style mountain that is the kind of triangular, lean back mountains. That's not what we're talking about. Karst is a particular geological type of mountain that is very straight. They're very tower like. And that's what we're going to be seeing in this image. So let's make sure that we are putting him in the right sort of geography. You can keep the same sort of colors, the same sort of values back there. We just need to make sure that we're switching the geography up right. And don't be afraid to let them be bigger. I kind of like the idea of these back here. Like there are these really big ones. Again, we want to exaggerate this, right? I mean, there can be a cloud coming across here. Maybe I'll just use a little tone. So there can be like a mountain up there, but then this cloud comes across it, so you don't see it for a ways, and then you see it a bit more here. Then this cloud, we'll put a cloud there, comes across it, and then it gets lost down there. And then you see like the tips of some other ones coming out of some of the clouds. And so these things are just, they're mythic, right? They're just big and they go up into the clouds. And then a lot of this area down here is probably just mist. And it just drops off into the mist and you can't really see much down there. Yeah, anyway, that would be cool. Yeah, the pose is off for me a little bit. Yeah, it's a bit more the brutish thing. I'd be looking at maybe more of a kata stance is kind of what he's going to be doing. Or just passive. Maybe he's got his hands out in front of him in a meditative pose. That could work as well. And something else is that you usually want to have a twist to the body somewhere. And character designer Ian McCaig, world-class artist Ian McCaig, he points that out, and that you usually want to have a twist somewhere, so that the upper body's twisting from the lower body, the head's twisting from the upper body. You see that on this guy over here, on the top reference character, that the lower body is facing this direction, the upper body's facing that direction, and the head's facing that direction. So you can see how the body twists as it goes up. Now, it's not like he's in the middle of a crazy kick that's getting it twisted. Even here on this guy, at least his head is in a slightly different line angle than the rest of the body. And that's something to consider on this guy as well. A lot of the lower body, I'm getting okay with the trousers, all the sashes and stuff going on. I get that. It's this upper piece going up over his shoulder. Like, I'm not even sure how that works with this pattern. I don't know if it's fabric. I don't know if it's metal. I would just make it fabric and just let there just be different bands of fabric that's wrapped up over that. It feels odd the way it's wrapping there, so just it can wrap around like this, and maybe there's some of it that wrap around the other way, and you have a couple of layers of it where it's tied in. Some of it's kind of tighter against him, and so it sort of weaves together in a couple of layers up around the top there. Yeah, something like that. I mean, I'm okay with this. So I did a couple of changes. I moved this up. Often you see with these monk characters and this sort of stuff is that the ties around the waist go up to much higher on the torso. Like on this guy down here, you can tell that it's almost up to his pecs. And here you have it sitting, all of this waist stuff is going on quite low. And so I would move that up and just shifting all that up, which makes him proportionally feel a lot more natural. That's kind of what you would expect on that change there. Move that up. Next, I just tried flipping his head to the other side. It's like, what is the minimum that we could do to kind of get to where we want to go? And I can do that. Boom. That's not a big deal. Make that change. And now he's got at least a little turn to his body as he's going up. Next, I was thinking about the lighting. And what if we just let the arm to be a more major light source? That this left side of his body becomes a bit more in shadow. And then the arm, the golden arm, can actually light up that side of his body. And then there could be a contrasting, slightly cooler tone there on the other side. And that can balance out nicely. Or you can do the pink, more of the violet pink tone from the sky. Either one would work and mesh with your color scheme. So, yeah. That's what I have on this one. You could also change up maybe even the leg pose a little bit. But you got to do something with the arms. Giving him something simple to hold. Maybe he even has just like a band of prayer beads and he's just holding that. I'll say it's not a weapon. You could probably get away with something like that. Or maybe there's a special scarf that he has that he's holding between his two hands. Or maybe he's adjusting and putting one of his robes on. He's in the middle of putting on a necklace, or he's in the middle of cinching up some sort of wrap around his arm. Something like that could give you a picture of, just him in almost a candid pose that would keep him from just having his arms out at his sides. And then, as you already noticed and mentioned, which is have the fabrics blowing. Whatever ties and stuff you have, make sure they're kind of blowing in the wind as well. Good stuff, Matt. Good stuff. Close that up though, and moving on to Thomas. Thomas Medina is up. Okay. Made 4 possible concepts. Which would you recommend to choose? All right, guys. We don't want to make this a habit. It's on you to give me your best concept. If you have maybe 2 very similar concepts, then just say, oh, like the arms up and the arms down. I get that. Give me the arms up, arms down. That's fine. Because it's variations of the concept. And I really wasn't sure how to choose between these variations. But it's not really on me to have to look over all of your concepts and decide for you. That's you. All right. Unless the challenge is specifically saying provide this number of concepts, you're the artist. You decide. You use your observational skills to determine which one's the best, and then you give it to me. So just kind of, across the board for everyone, so to keep that in mind. Because it's easy just to become lazy with it. Say, I made 4. Which would you choose? No, you decide. That's, iterations. You pick the best and you move on. Okay, so without continuing on having to mention that, I'm just going to base it more on what you've given me right here. Right? This is one that you put big. This is the one I'm looking at. So, for you, I know you took a look at this. What's some stuff that stood out, or maybe some ideas of how to proceed?
Yeah. So, what I first thought when I saw that piece, that there's a lot of very dark values going on, and that
Yeah.
makes it a little bit hard to read. It might be because I'm so much into the topic of values at the moment that I just tend to see this first everywhere now. But yeah, let's talk maybe not first about the values, but the pose itself. I felt like this pose is not much readable to me. What he's doing there is, his leg is his knee is a little bit up, and his arm is pulled towards his belly, and he's looking a little bit sad. I don't know what he's doing there, so this pose is not much readable to me. Some other poses he did, like the one in the middle concept from his sketches, even though we said we are not picking for him, but I'd say something more readable would have been better. What makes him also specifically a monk, and here he is, I don't know, what would you say, what is he doing there?
Yeah, well, talking on this seems to be the only pose that I don't see an actual photo reference for, which is odd. If this is the big one that you've colored up and put in the scene, I'm assuming that you're going to have a photo reference for this particular pose, and you don't. So, yeah, this pose itself just feels like something you kind of made up. I can't see anybody naturally posing like this. The other poses seemed, some of these seem more over the top, but like you mentioned, study pose 2. Now we can mention, say, all right, you know what, you're going to use this scene, okay, cool, but let's use that pose. Or even the color study 1 pose, it's very karate, but again, it's at least karate. It's a little more interesting. Yeah, this just not telling me very much.
Yeah.
So let's swap that out for somebody else and make sure you have a photo of it and do like a volume study of the pose. Draw the volumes of the body. Look at their contours. Do a contour study of it. Because we're getting a lack of the volumes, a lack of the understanding of the depth of the pieces that we're working with, the three-dimensional aspect of it. So do volume studies for you, all right, Thomas, in order for you to help recognize how these things are interacting three-dimensionally.
So, but we will be covering also these form studies in the art club.
Yeah, those are good studies
that.
to do. Like,
So I already have jotted everything down, and this will be part in the upcoming weeks to look for volumes, look for 3D forms and stuff like that. You might join, Thomas. So yeah, the post was the first thing that I wanted to talk about. So find something more specific. This is also a thing for the value studies and the color studies that he chose every time a different composition, every time a different pose. This is not how to do the value and color studies. You decide for one piece that you want to go for, and then do 3 different value studies of that. Pick out one value study and try 3 different color studies of that. And
yeah,
not a little bit of there, this piece, and that sketch, and
yeah, you're dividing your attention too thin, and you're dividing your time too thin. There's a lot more efficient ways to get to a better concept. So on the top left, you're going through multiple concepts. Each one's a different pose from a different angle. Good. Yeah, that's exactly what you should do. And then just pick one. Pick whichever one is the best one, and then that's the one that you do all 3 value studies of. Don't pick different concepts. Pick the one that is the best one. And then you pick the best one from that, and then you do 3 versions of color studies of that one. And then that's the one that you take over and do a little more refining on for the main image in the center. And this is going to maximize the use of your time and maximize the best idea getting better. Now, looking at the values, something that would be good is looking at the values of your reference images. So over here, the lighting. You're going to use that lighting? Okay, cool. Put a black and white filter on it like this, and then look at the lighting. In which case, over here, what you're seeing is, let's actually just paint him out for a moment. Most of the background is a midtone. Okay, so we can just fill that in kind of a midtone. And you're looking for the basic. To start with, you're just looking at like super simple values. And you're just looking at 3 tones. You've got like that, and then you've got the dark. That's the foreground roof, and the character. And then you've got the only light part, which is a bit of light going across the some of the roofs back there, and then the highlight of light up here by him with the lightning. All right, that's basically the value of that scene. That's what we want to use, but that's not what we're getting over here. That's what we need to implement. So if that's what you're implementing, then he's in shadow. Then the background has to be a midtone. And this is what you're doing with your value studies, right? You picked your pose, you picked your composition, and now you're going to do variations. And that none of this can be as dark as him. None of it. It's too far away. The absolute black level gets lighter the further it's getting away. So you can't have as black and black in the background.
Yeah, we are covering exactly that in the art club at the moment, where you get out some pieces, look how are the value ranges for the background, how are they for the midground and for the foreground. For around the focal point, we're doing analysis about that. So it's exactly what we have here. That is what we are training for in the art club at the moment.
No, I do like your idea here, Thomas, of you are very much utilizing the arm as a light source. And I think that's cool. And I think that's one of the ways that you can get away with him being in shadow. Normally, I'm not a big fan of having your main character in your scene being in a lot of shadow, but you're lighting him with the unique selling point. And so it brings more attention to that aspect. The same way over here with this guy, I forget this character's name in MTG that has the lightning pack. But he gets to be in shadow because it allows the lightning to show up and light him. Thereby, again, what's unique about this character? The lightning pack. So what's it doing? He's using the scene and the lighting and the shadows in order to sell that unique point about the character. That's what you're doing here. Love it. Keep doing that. I don't want to change that. So we want to base that value scheme around utilizing that fact of the character. Now, just to clarify, again with the hair, either bald or spray of hair. Okay. Don't use that exact shape. That's ugly, but just a reminder. And then let's see some more iterations of the character. All right, go out there, looking at some of the reference pages like this. All right, look across these guys. Look to see some of the shapes that they use, the layers that they use, the ornamentation, the accessories. We want to add in some of that, make them a bit more interesting, a bit more unique, and build them up from there. I think that covers the main thing here. If you are crunched on time, or you're just feeling like you're really overwhelmed, Thomas, then don't worry about the colors. Just do a black and white image, and that's fine. It would be well worth your time to be able to focus on just a set of aspects of the image, then stretch thin and do more aspects only moderately well. Okay, next up we have Tyler Vale. Okay, and I had some notes there. We'll turn that off real quick. Please be easy on me, Anna. Anna, do you hear that? Tyler is asking for mercy.
Well,
You have scared him.
It's so scary as it seems. I'll see, Tyler. I'll see.
Specifically does ask, does the statue in the background look too weird? And I also think I could spice up the lighting on Asher, and just not sure how. So it feels like it's actually ticking off a lot of the boxes from the outline. And initially looking at it, a couple of things are catching me off a little bit, but what's catching your eye here?
Okay. Tyler, why are you afraid of me? What did I do? Okay. I was very I had a very positive impression on this one. I was opening it and was like, oh, it's really cool to look at. I like the colors so far, and the lighting. It gave me the Planeswalker vibe as well, with the lower angle, epic pose. I think also the belt and the design work well for the most parts. What I was not so liking on his design is the shoulder plate. It looks, yeah, it makes it a little bit flat, and I don't know, it's a little bulky, and the rest is not bulky. It doesn't connect well to the body, so I'd change a bit of the design there. For his question with the one in the background, I think it's a cool thing to have such a huge figure statue in the background. I'm just not sure about the placement and also the direction it is facing, because it's exactly the same direction as the character in the front.
Yeah.
And for me, it would be then giving the impression, for example, when I made now his eyes glow, that he's commanding that statue in the background. It can start moving and attacking people or something.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So,
yeah, okay.
yeah, so it's kind of that.
I could
so-
see that.
Yeah, I like the idea, but I'd experiment a little bit more whether to make it maybe a little bit more receding in the background, facing another direction, stuff like that. How to push the lighting? You are not very confident with your edges in the lighting. So this is something that many, me as well, struggle a lot with. We are always a little bit cautious and have soft edges everywhere in the lighting. And you can push drama of the lighting if you have clear shadows and clear light parts, and find very interesting shapes for the shadows. There's a lot of stuff on Bucci's channel over there. You can check there, or it's also talked about in the art club. We are also covering this. Be a little bit more bold with sharp edges and shadows. For example, where his how is it called? It's not a skirt, but that is in front, flying
It's
towards us.
it's almost more like a tabard.
A tabard. Okay, I'm learning English here.
It's probably a
Uh,
different name for it, but it's almost like a medieval tabard. I'm not sure.
Yeah, this would have a very nice cast shadow on his leg, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And cast shadows tend to have more of a sharp edge. So play a little bit more with cast shadow and form shadow. Form shadow can be soft edged and cast shadow more with hard edged. And have a little bit of, yeah, these things, yeah, alternating a little bit. And then you will get more dynamic in the lighting for
Mm-hmm.
this piece. Yeah, so these are my first thoughts, and
Yeah, those
I
are good
think,
thoughts, Anna. Uh, I've got to go back to start with the comment of, yeah, it has just the basic Planeswalker feel to it, and and I think that's really important because overarching, is it hitting that right note? And I think it is. You got a good balance of the size of the character to the size of the scene. He's nice and centered. The background has a good color scheme, sort of slash value scheme to go against his. So all those elements are working together quite nicely. Now talking about sort of optimizing it, yeah, I was also going to mention the shoulder piece, and I don't have an issue with him having a shoulder piece. Let's make it an Asian shoulder piece. I downloaded some images. I'll just pull up on those. Two are more like traditional, and one is from Once Upon a Time. So, in like a fantasy version. Let's go with this. Plate armor, not really a thing with Asian armor. They used a lot more leathers, beads, even that they would use beads, and the beads were like hard ceramic that you couldn't stab through. So be using one of these sort of designs. Now, as far as the character themselves, let's get rid of the fabric on that side. Let's just have it this side. Let's have this fabric coming down across here. And then this can all be bare across that side. Let this be here. And then we're going to be looking probably for some kind of this style where kind of following that sort of thing. Maybe it has a tie kind of like this. Maybe it has like a band that comes up and grabs part of it. Then there's the layers of this thing that come around like that. And then it has the stitching on it. And it just feels like it meshes into his aesthetic of who he is, what his sort of nationality is, even though it's made up wherever he's from. And so you've got a bit more like that. The breeze coming along here. Something that does feel a little odd is that you have all this fabric coming out this way, blowing this direction, but you have the magic wisp going the other direction. I would expect that to go the same way if the wind is catching both of them. I've only made that mistake half a dozen times in my work, so something I pay attention to now. The idea of the statue, I don't have an issue with. The placement feels a little odd because it is like he's got his fist right up there to the face. And it's almost mirroring him. And also, if you feel like some background element is maybe too unique, is it, is it distracting or whatever, then turn it into a pattern. Anytime there's one of something, it's unique and it adds attention to it. If you have multiples of them, it becomes a pattern and they individually become less important. So my thought would be to get the, let me get something darker I can draw with here. I would make maybe the statue be back here. And you can have the statue here, and maybe the hands are up in this sort of meditative pose. The arms like this, right? And they come out. And then this could be a mountain that comes up. And then if you want something here, you want to have like a temple. Some sort of temple place with some towers and stuff. And maybe you see some like walkways coming down and some other little temple stuff along here. And then you would have a statue. Then you would have two more statues. Or maybe you have a statue back here. Maybe it's mainly just a head. And now you don't want to mash his head, that head. You could have some other statue kind of back in there hidden behind that thing. Then you would have the big head here. That you have the, like the nose and the eye. And it's fallen off, right? And you can tell that it's kind of broken and there's cracks going across it, and it's down in there. So now you have this pattern of giant statues along in the background, and you could even do things like having some more little of the monastery places kind of scattered back there, and it gives a little more culture, whatever, to him. This also feels odd. I'm not sure what's happening here. Like this comes up, and then it's, I don't know what this is. I don't know if that's part of the background or whether that's supposed to be this in shadow. Anyway, you could probably just stop the rock along there. We probably don't want it pointing up like that. That's a little odd. The legs feel like maybe that one could be further out. I'd be looking at doing bit more of that with this leg, letting them get maybe a little more broad. Even if you went a little more than that, that could work. Making more planted. I hadn't thought about it until this, but I was looking at this pose with the arm, and you're doing that with the fist, which is kind of cool. But maybe we could even run with that a little bit more and have essentially an oversized version of his arm almost going around his arm. Right? And so it's almost like he's summoning this even more powerful kind of ghost hand around his hand. Like that sort of thing. Right? That could be cool. Lighting wise, I did want to say that, not necessarily lighting wise, but that's an excellent example or reference. I forget that guy's name. Beautiful piece here. Same sort of lighting. A lot of Planeswalkers will use that basic full lighting on the top down to just a fill light shaded on the bottom. And that sort of pattern worked just fine for you if you want to do that, or if you want to do it where it's just catching an angle, like just a slash on this side is catching the light, or maybe a slash on that side is catching the light. Either way, that could work. Well, that's a lot of feedback, a lot of choices there, Tyler, and best of luck with it. 2 more left. William is up next. We're running a little long today. Sorry, guys.
I'm gonna get my revenge now on you, Will. He just called me the bad cop. I'm definitely
bad
the
cop?
bad cop, he said. because you said in the stream I made you the good cop. And
Well, do you really
said,
punish people for telling the truth? That's terrible.
that's not you're also mean to me. I'm not the bad cop. Why am I the bad cop?
I don't want to be the bad cop. That makes you the bad cop.
It's just because you only paint happy characters.
Will says, I basically don't have time for this, but we'll make up for that in the next 2 weeks. Very rough. I'm thinking this pose and mood. I like the prayer beads for the design, and thought of them floating and magical around him. Would be cool with the golden arm. I feel the background would be desaturated blues and greens. Yeah, it's pretty rough, but we've got some stuff here that we can talk about. And yeah, I like those ideas. I think that having some, floating some prayer beads around him could look cool. Yeah, how did you take this? Obviously, not as much to go off of here, but everybody has a hard week where things come up and they lose some time. It happens occasionally, so we're going to roll with it.
Yeah, he said right from the start that he's gonna be very busy, but still wanted to go for it. So I'm happy we have him, and he's still trying it, and it's a good thing. But also to show the people, even if you don't have much, because we have one person that did not submit again. So even if you don't have much, just post it, and we can help you with that. So this is what we've got here. Yeah, I like the idea with these balls or something flying around. I'm not sure whether this is what you imagined for a Sharon to be and to have, but I think it's a cool, unique idea. It would make him stand out design-wise.
Yeah, I went and thought that it would be a continual thing, but I could see it being within the realm of the character that he could do this. That it would almost be part of his meditation that these things, would start going around him when he does his meditation. So yeah, I would be in line with this. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah. If he's just like now moving these little thingies around his body, I think that his left for us the right arm is a little bit too passive because he's doing something at the moment, like summoning these little shiny balls or something. So maybe having this arm also interact with that magic would be cool. Having it maybe come a little bit towards us to get a little bit of foreshortening is always looking good. And between the two of his right for us left arms, I choose the lower one. The other one feels a little bit too pushed towards the body and makes it, a little bit more.
Oh, you're talking
squeezed.
about because he has two poses of the arm.
Yeah, I like the lower one more actually. I'm not quite sure what the legs are going to be like. I can't really read it well, so I can't say whether I think these poses are good. And design-wise, yeah, he did not push it far enough to say something about it. There is the first monkish things going on. Yeah, push the design, get some iterations, try out some different shape languages for your monk, and I think you're good to go then. So this is basically all I can say. I'm sorry I can't tell you more, but I can't get more out of the sketch.
Yeah, that's about what we can go with what we were told. I have a couple of ideas. It is at a stage where it's fairly open, and I was just kind of doing a little brainstorming about maybe things that you could do with it, and also about the design of the character, because at this point he's really broad. All right, not much is pinned down. I like what's going on up here, that one of the arms is raised, the prayer beads are going around. I like the angle on the upper body, that's working. I'm not a big fan of the legs. Just the whole one knee is kneeling, the other knee is up. It feels odd. So my thought was, what if we handled a couple of other things? What if we had a bit more of this pose where he is balancing himself like on a vine. and at an angle, like if there was a vine hanging down, that he's obviously using. Well, I can't tell, man. It looks like he's kneeling. I'm not sure what's going on. But I was thinking like it's almost like he's Spider-Manning on the side of a cliff like this, right? And he's using some sort of chi power to just stand almost perfectly sideways on this cliff, and he's just touching it, with the tips of his feet, and then he's also got these things floating around him. You're like, oh, dude, this guy's got some sort of preternatural abilities, that normal people don't have. Nobody can actually do that. And so his legs could be bent, but like one of them's straight and one of them's kind of bent as he's connected to the side there. Then I was thinking about what the other hand could do, than just about the designs and stuff, and that's what I was catching the ideas from these references that some of these guys. Who was it? There was somebody in here. Yeah, that has like the big scrolls. Like that could be cool. If you gave it to me, or if you want to use the idea, I think it would be great. That behind him, he's got like several of these scrolls in these ornate cases, and that this hand, if you want this hand doing something, it could at least be holding a scroll. So maybe these are like the ancient texts that he reads, or maybe these are different kinds of powers that he can unleash. And so they're not weapons, but they're something that gives more identity to him. And you can also use these things, like League of Legends Rise, right? He's got like this massive ancient magic scroll that is strapped to his back. So it's kind of along that lines. You wouldn't want to use the same silhouette and the same pose. But even if he had like this big scroll case that goes around, behind, almost Naruto style, that sort of thing, when they have the big scrolls that they summon the. What are those little blades they throw in Naruto? That never do anything. They never hit anybody. They never stop anybody. But they throw 1,000 of them. I don't know. Yeah. So I think the scrolls could be cool. And you could even be thinking about like maybe the white fabric has these gold, I'm going to say, text on them. Right? And so it's got this script that goes along the white fabric, and that could be kind of cool. And then the prayer beads. And as far as the rest of the gold and the prayer beads, I was thinking along this line would be really neat, and it would be a little off from what normally you would see, which is bright, shiny gold. Yeah, but what if they're older? What if it's got this beautiful green patina on the gold, and some of the gold is a bit more rubbed off, or it's slightly more brass-like, and so that would give you access to a little more colors in the green realm, and that you could even tie into the background. The kunai, yes, the absolutely worthless to use kunai. Mm-hmm. Oh, what's her name? That's like the weapons summoning expert girl. She does like the 1,000 blade attack, and it still doesn't hit anybody. Anyway. So yeah, William. That's about what I'm thinking. Your basic little color study here. I'm okay with that. Nice collection of just limited greens and kind of earthy tones with some oranges in there. Tamari. Yeah, Tamari. Oh, and then the fabrics. I was these little SE lines. I was just thinking about in terms of fabrics. Don't just have a fabric piece maybe coming out the front, but think about some of these bits could be coming out from behind him. So he's got the front parts that hang down, and then the Oh no, Tamari's the wind girl. 1010 is the one with the weapon summons. Yeah, Tamari's the wind girl.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Anna's not cool like you guys are.
I have never watched any Naruto.
It's like the whole thing starts picking up once you get to the tuning exams, and then it's like, oh, okay, now I'm invested. Yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. That's about my thoughts. Hopefully, you find that helpful. At least give you some ideas, maybe jumpstart. Now that you have some more time.
Yep.
Last one up is voice chat. Voice chat.
White check. Yeah.
I looked online to see how to pronounce that, and half the people said the CH is like a K. No, the CH is like a sh. So I don't know.
Really? Yeah.
No.
So I think white check, because there is a novel that we have to read in school in Germany, and he is called White Sack. So maybe it's coming from that. So, but it's very German, so maybe white check, something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I assume the W was more V-like, and the J didn't make the normal English J sound.
Yeah. Let us know
yeah.
how to pronounce your name.
Voice chat. Yeah.
White check.
I'm, you know, one of the things I do want to say about this, it's good to see another Warcraft. I wasn't sure what the balance was. We definitely have more MTG interest. So going forward, we probably shouldn't do any more Warcraft. There's just not enough interest.
Clint, I'm out. I'm leaving. Goodbye. See you guys.
Suddenly, Anna needs to go to bed. Okay, the sort of colors and overall lighting, I'm a fan of this. One of the things that I've got to point out that's an issue, and I do have a little redrawing of this in order to kind of work you through my solution, is that if you're going to reference a pose like you have here, you can see the lines there connecting those. You don't really want to so perfectly mirror the pose of a cosplayer doing the same thing that you're doing. Because I assume that's a cosplayer. I don't think that was in a movie or anything. It's just not fair to them. At this point, you're basically just copying that. There's not enough removal between the source and your artwork. So if you found, a photo of Legolas from Lord of the Rings, who was an archer, and you liked one of his poses, you would be more free to adapt that into your elf without there being an issue. But at this point, basically, you're just illustrating this photo. So I'm going to challenge you to take some cues from the photo, but we need to find a new pose or a new angle so that you're not going to just be redoing that image. Now I like the idea of her in the shade with her big cat with her. That's cool. And let me say the Swatches. I think that was TB did a presentation on exaggerating a pose to make it more lifelike. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Okay. Okay, so Anna, before I look into some of my sketches, we'll see how right you were with your comments. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I really, really liked the composition he decided to go for. It's filling the space very well and doesn't feel too squeezed in or something. It looks very natural, but there is no lost space anywhere. That is what I like really much about this piece. I also like the idea with the backlight and the hunters being more in shadow, as said before. I like that idea in general pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like the colors. They're giving me the Warcraft vibe. With elves, there's a lot of pink and purple going on in Warcraft. So this fits also really well. Um, Besides design, you already said that. Go a little bit more for your design, make your version, but make it Warcraft. So
Mm-hmm.
look again, what are there for um, shape, what is there for shape language, especially the skirt and chest piece. There's not a lot of thought into there yet. So maybe do a little sketch of iterations for armor, not within the piece, but maybe make her stand like really stiffly somewhere from front view and get some design ideas first before implementing them into your piece. Um, Also, the cat needs some more detail, but it's just a sketch, so I think he will be going for that for the upcoming weeks. And what I would add here is a light coming from a kind of a camera light for us. So to get a little bit more description for the forms of her and the cat. It could be maybe make the plants glow. There's a lot of glowing stuff in Warcraft. There are
Yes.
mushrooms that are glowing. There are plants and trees glowing. There are crystals suddenly growing out of of the ground. So you could use that to create more light sources. They don't have to be super strong,
Right.
but strong enough that we see a little bit more of the detail of our main characters. Yeah, this would be my. I like the poses, like she's preparing to yeah, to shoot, and the cat is also like trying in the moment before jumping or something like that. They're lurking there in the shadows. I like that idea. Um, yeah, so the lighting would probably change a lot for this piece. Maybe go a little bit for something noir. So having just parts of the body being lit by something or part of the face. Um, Maybe just the mouth or something like that, so that you get a little bit more of a mysterious look. So don't show everything, but show enough so that we can see who's there, but don't show them completely, that we still have to add something while looking at the piece. Yeah, these are my suggestions.
Yeah, I think you really did hit on something there. The shadow is nice, but it's still a bit too dark in order to bring out the amount of detail connection that we need with the character. And yeah, this is Fuzzy. This is one of the rare times that she jumps up here during a stream and actually wants attention. Normally, I have to go chase her down to get her on camera. But she also loves to lay right on the drawing pad so that Clint can no longer draw anything on the screen. So let's see if we can
That's
work
how they
around
are.
Kitty here. There we go. Yeah. Now you're just wanting to be inconvenient, aren't you? Okay. Yeah, this is also one where you need to do a character design first and probably go through a couple of revisions to figure out what kind of shoulder pieces you want. Do you want ones that go up at the tips? Do you want ones that go down? Which one is going to give you the silhouette you like best? Do you want the shorter hair? Do you want longer hair? Do you want a big, swath of hair back there? What sort of skirt do you want? Do you want pieces that go down over the thighs? Do you want more of a fabric skirt that will be a bit more billowy? Yeah? Okay, so let's look at one of the first things that I did on my little redraw here is I just brightened it up. I just went into the levels and I did a brighten up on it. The lighting still works, right? It's a little too bright in the background. You need to play with it. That was just a great change. Then I wanted to start looking at a change of the pose. So what I'm thinking is that you can get the idea of this. And I'm thinking, okay, what if we have her basically this same angle, but she's got her arm out here with the bow up, and she has that arrow drawn right there. Okay, so that you can still use a lot of the same information. The head's in pretty much the same pose. A lot of the upper body is in a very similar pose, and you get the information from this without necessarily copying this. But if you do that, I'm actually thinking of reversing these guys. And right now we have the plants on this, this level. Then the person is behind them. Then the cat is behind them. Then the background is behind the cat. But it's all little stair steps. And can we get it to work together? So I put a white here in order to be able to draw on it. I scooted her over so she would be a bit more centered instead of off to the left side. Because right now, the cat is actually featured a lot more than she is. So can we switch it? That, and we get her here. Then I'm looking at this. That's a Sketchfab little one-line thing of whoever this model is. But that mimics really closely to her upper body and doing that sort of thing. And then I redrew it like this. So here we could have perhaps a more useful breakdown of she's more centered here. And now the bow is up. She's in the middle of action. And what's not real clear here is that the cat head is here. And the cat is going back around her. Right, so now they're interacting. That the cat's looping around her body, and then the tail's coming off that other side. And we still get to have that angle to everything, right? And we can still have a tree branch or leaves or whatever here. Then thinking about, instead of having a bunch of just individual trees, trying to be a little more picky, like having one big tree here. Kind of looking at this one over here, right? Having a big tree here so that this is all canopy. This is all canopy above her. Then you see some other trees back here. So it's simplifying it so the background's not really busy. And again, you can add like glowing things up in the tree. Whatever it is, magic things up in the tree. And I think that would be a more dynamic scene. They're both in a bit more of an action. They're interacting more because the cat's sort of prowling around her. And it keeps you from over-relying or overusing a reference image. Thoughts on that sort of approach, Miss Warcraft?
I like that idea too. It's not that I don't think, or it's not that I think that the first one that he submitted wouldn't work. I like that one too. It's of course a little bit less dynamic and more the lurk mode. But I like your ideas too. I think both of them are good to go. It depends on whether he wants something more dynamic or something more calm. And
well, those are some ideas. I'm going with what Anna said, which is let's play up something with a little more color in the scene, something that's maybe glowing. Maybe the trees are a different color. There are different places in Warcraft and stuff that maybe the trees are red or the trees are purple or that sort of thing. It can allow you to use a different color scheme in the woods than you would normally use. Or maybe the trees, all the leaves are red, not just the little bush in front of her. Being able to allow you to change up some stuff in the background as well. Okay, well, that is it for the lineup. Next week, we'll be looking at the concepts for Group 2. And Anna will be showing us some ideas of hers in that one. Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm a student, as you guys in chat and those that are watching later. I'm also just a student. I'm just here. I'm moderator. Clint invited me to get a second opinion. I try to help as good as I can. I'm not the pro here, but maybe it helps even to have a novice kind of opinion on stuff. What do you think, Clint? Is it okay?
No, I like that you have an opinion, and you bring out
Yay!
things that I wouldn't normally think of. Oh, I forgot to open these files and show you this. Um, on David's image, not specifically about David's image. It's just the one that I did it on, and I've got to show you. I was thinking of the arm sort of in lines with these, which is the skull and magic behind her. Like if the arm could kind of be like that, or I did the Jesus Ruse image where the skull is obviously some sort of magical construct, and you could treat it that way as well. And I did like a quick kind of over on the arm there, and using that sort of approach for the arm, where you can tell its shape, you can tell the anatomy of it, but yet you can also tell that it is not a tangible flesh and blood sort of arm. I almost completely forgot to do that, but anyway. And you can have like some little magic wisp, dots or something coming off of it if you want to, and it can be trailing a little light if you want to have like. You want it to have almost a faint kind of, I'm going to say like magic smoke coming off of it or something. Something like that could work as well. So. I think of anything. I should be back to. I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to be streaming on Twitch next week all week because I only have about a week before I really need to get this Patreon thing done, and I'm days away. I'm making good headway on it, but it is days away, and so between the two, I'm going to prioritize getting the Patreon video out over doing the Twitch streams in the mornings. So I will try to put a note out there how that's going to be, and whether I'll be skipping those, or whether those will be continuing. And again, a quick shout out to the art club. If you want to just be practicing your skills, improving your use of values, then drop to the Discord or the Facebook. Probably more is going to be taking place on the Discord. Easier to keep up with things over there. So, yeah. Any
it's
final
okay
thoughts?
To have you. Yeah. It's okay to have you at least one day on Twitch next week, so you can do our tea drinking Nicol Bolas emote that you promised us.
I thought we established that was your thing, and that you were going to do it. And if I liked it, I might use it as an emote.
No. We're not gonna do that, Clint. Promise is promise.
I don't remember promising that at all.
Okay.
But clearly, we have something to discuss here. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining, and we will catch you next week, if not out on the group pages. Until then, guys, keep drawing.
Bye.
Adios.